The dominant, it turns out that the dominant is like, I don't know. Should I use a controversial political analogy here?
Yeah.
Sarah's like, yes. Let's now look at some fugues. Does anybody have a favorite number between 1 and 24?
I like 9.
9, okay.
There's the square root of 3.
Yeah, 9 is a good number.
14.
14 is a good number too.
Yeah.
All right, so let's look at fugue number 9. Nice, right? Why do we care about fugues, or why do people write fugues? Because they're beautiful and fun, right? They're beautiful and fun. There's not many things that are beautiful and fun at the same time, right? This is one of them. Okay, so we have this one is a lot like an invention, actually, isn't it? So in an invention, we talk about motives. Maybe that's not totally appropriate for all the inventions. In fugues, we talk about, instead of a motive, we talk about a subject. And the term subject has more weight to it, right? Motive implies something short. Subject implies something a little bit more well-developed, right? This, like the subject of my thesis or the subject of my paper or something like that, is something a little bit more weighty. But this particular subject is also very short, almost like an invention motive, right? So that's the whole subject, okay? Now, where does the imitation happen? So just like in an invention, a fugue starts with a subject, and then that subject is passed to another voice or imitated by another voice. Yes, good. So it's right here. See that? So you have the subject, and then when the subject is passed to another voice, now it's called the answer. Okay? And the answer is not transposed to the octave. Right? In inventions, the imitation always happens at the octave. Here, the answer is at what level? At what level of transposition? Verity's already said it. So if you remember what Verity said, at the fifth. Yeah. So the first note of the subject is E. The first note of the answer is B. So when you transpose something at the fifth, there is the tendency then to do what? Can anybody finish my sentence without any context? Modulate, yeah, exactly. So when you transpose something up a fifth, there's a tendency to modulate to the dominant. Does this actually modulate to the dominant?
Yes.
Yes. How do you know?
Because we have an A sharp.
Yeah,
So
the A sharp, which is the leading tone of B, which is the dominant of E. So it's an immediate modulation. Is this Bach allowed to modulate so soon in a piece? Apparently so. It would appear to be the case that yes, he's allowed to modulate immediately. It's kind of hard to avoid the modulation. If you have a well-defined subject, a subject that outlines the tonic triad very clearly. Then if you transpose it to the level of the dominant, then you're pretty much going to have to modulate. So that's exactly what happens here. So we have the subject, and then the answer, and you hear the modulation happening. Now, the problem is we have a third voice involved, okay? So the third voice has to come in, and what key is the third voice going to appear in? Or what key would you expect it to appear in? If you had to guess, yeah.
Oh, I thought E.
E, yeah, that's right, yeah. It has to go back to the tonic. Okay, he's not going to modulate to the dominant and just stay there for a while. He's going to want to come back to the tonic because the third voice has to come in. And it just makes sense, doesn't it, for the third voice to come in at the tonic? Okay, but there's a problem that occurs here. Do you see what the problem is? There's a problem with going back to the tonic immediately. Can anybody tell what the problem is?
Well, you've got the leading tone from the dominant in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Which doesn't belong.
Exactly, yeah. By the time you get to the end of the answer, you are solidly in the dominant key, in the key of B. And if you were then to immediately go back to the tonic, that would be too jarring. It would be, yeah, you're not, it's not set up to go immediately back to the tonic. So what does Bach do? The subject, it's kind of an open question that whether the rest is part of the subject. Probably isn't, but anyway, you can clearly see where the subject starts by looking at that quarter rest, and then you can see where the answer starts by looking at that quarter rest, and then you would expect to see this rest should be over here, so that the E, like this note, should be occurring right here. See that? That's where it should be coming in. If it, or no, is that right? No, it should be coming in right here, actually. If it's staying in line with the way that the subject and the answer were going, right? But he delays it a little bit and puts some extra music in here. Oops. There's some extra music. So let me see if I can illustrate this as clearly as possible. So here's your subject, yeah? And then here is the answer, and it goes, how far does it go? About to there, right? And then we get this stuff in here, roughly, is extra music. And why does he put that little bit of extra music in there? Okay, everybody think about that for a minute.
Modulation.
Good. Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So, what do you see in the music that tells you that the modulation has happened? Let me zoom in on this a little bit.
A sharp.
Yeah. So there's an A sharp here, which belongs to the dominant, to the key of B, and then that A sharp goes away inside this little box here. That A sharp becomes an A natural in order to move back to the key of E, right? So this little extra bit of music needs to be there in order to more smoothly modulate back to the tonic before the subject returns in the third voice. Okay? So we call this little bit of music, there's a name for it. Do you remember the assignment, what it said in the assignment? Actually, it occurs to me that I could try to draw a little Golden Gate Bridge here. I guess it's got to be kind of red though, huh? Anyway, So what do you call this little section of music? A bridge. Yes, that's a bridge. That's kind of a nice bridge, actually. It's cute, right? All right, so we have the subject in the tonic, the answer in the dominant, and then a little bridge to modulate back to the tonic, and then you get the subject back in a tonic again. Okay? That is the exposition. Okay, so number 14 was the other number that someone called out. So let's look at 14. Fugue and 14, or Fugue 14. So this one has 4 voices. What key are we in here? All right, let's not do this one. It's beautiful. All right, we'll listen to it at least.
We're at 14 now.
What's that? This is 14, yeah.
Oh, this is 14?
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe we can learn from it. Let's see. Some of them are F sharp minor. This is a good one. So beautiful. I'm sorry to cut it off, but we don't have time to deal with this one. This one is over the top. This one's so beautiful. It's so amazing. I love it, but it's got some weird stuff in it that we don't want to deal with. So let's try 15 instead. Yeah. Yeah, this one's going to be better. Yeah, okay. 15 in G major. Beautiful sunny key of G major. If we have time, we'll listen to the whole thing. I hate to cut it off. Sorry. I feel like I'm committing an act of violence or sacrilege or something. Anyway, okay. This is a good one. This is very typical sort of. So this subject is exactly 4 bars long. So this is your subject. Then the answer, obviously, is very clearly you see here, and it is immediately in the dominant. See that? Okay, so you immediately modulate to the dominant. You can see the C sharps everywhere. And then you would expect now then to see the answer, or the subject rather, coming back here in measure 9, but instead you get 2 whole bars of extra music. And you can see that in the first bar, the C sharp is still there. And in this bar, the C sharp disappears to bring us back to the key of G. This is a good one to model on, actually, 15. I think I've used it in the past. So this, yeah, definitely take a look when you're trying to write your own. Look at this one. This one is very clear. Don't look at 14. All right, let's find, I want to talk about something else though now, something that's a little bit confusing. So let's see if I can find, there. Oh yeah, this one might. Yeah, this one does. Awesome. This is working out so well. Okay, so here's a fugue. Fugue 21. What key is this one in? B flat major, yes. This is another excellent one to model off
There's
of.
almost no bridge.
Okay, good. So we're going to talk about some things that are different about this one. So that is the opening of the subject. Okay, so that's how it starts. And then when we look at the answer here, do you notice anything weird? The answer should be transposed to the level of the dominant. That means that it's either a perfect fifth above or a perfect fourth below the subject. The answer is either a perfect fifth above or a perfect fourth below. Why is it a perfect fourth below? Because that's the level of the dominant. The dominant is a fourth below the tonic or a fifth above the tonic, right? If you go a fifth below the tonic, then where are you at?
The fourth.
You're at the subdominant. Yeah, exactly. So it's either a fifth above or a fourth below. It's at the level of the dominant. Does anybody see anything weird about, okay, don't answer. I know some of you know this, but I want to give everyone a chance to feel some stress. So I'm going to call on someone at random. We have some chairs up here. Somebody's stealing chairs. Or maybe the popularity of this class is becoming, or the enthusiasm that this class generates is becoming more widely known, and more people are coming. Maybe that's why. Okay, so what's a little bit weird about this answer? Don't answer. Don't say it. I'm gonna call on someone at random. Do you guys want a minute to think about it? So here's your subject, or this is not the whole subject, but, and the answer is, okay, so what is weird about that? Sarah.
My instinct is telling me that one of those intervals is going to have a different quality, but I cannot pinpoint which.
Okay,
It's-
yeah,
it's
you're hearing the,
Polaris.
yeah, the hearing the, there's a difference of quality there, yeah, good. All right, I'm still gonna call on someone at random, so y'all are still
Oh,
on the hot seat.
they changed the second to be a third.
Yes, good,
The
okay,
F
good, yes.
becomes a
So
B flat,
this
B flat.
interval here from F to G is a second. Here it's B flat to D. So if you think about transposition, we're transposing the subject down a fourth or up a fifth. Is that what's actually happening though, in this particular case?
No.
No.
They're both diatonic in their keys.
Okay, good. And we're going to get to that, yes. That's right. So the first note is an F. If you transpose an F down a perfect fourth, what note should you have? Should be a C. But the note that we get is a B flat instead. So it's down a step from where it should be. See that? Okay, what about the next note? The next note is a G. What is a perfect fourth below G? D. So that is correct. So we can, actually no, let's see. It's this one that's wrong, right? That's incorrect. The next note is an F. If you transpose that down a perfect fourth, you should get a C, but instead we get a B flat. So again, we have -2. So far it's a solid A- for Bach. We'll see if he fixes it. All right, yeah, let's keep going. So here we have a B flat. What's a perfect fourth below a B flat? F. Okay, so that's correct. Then we have a D. Perfect fourth below D is A. That's correct. Okay, and then from there on out, the C to the F is correct. The A down a perfect fourth should be what? E, right? E natural. E natural. So that's correct. The E natural is, what role does the E natural play? Why is the E natural important? That's the leading tone of F, and F is the dominant of B flat. Yeah. The A in the key of B flat is the leading tone of B flat, right? So if you transpose that exactly down to perfect fourth, you're going to force the modulation. If you transpose the leading tone exactly down a fourth, you will force the modulation because you'll get the leading tone of the dominant. See that? So from there on out, everything is correct. Okay, it's just these B flats that are wrong. Okay, so why? Let me get rid of all this junk. Why does he make such an egregious error? How hard is it for Bach to transpose down a fourth, right? That should be pretty easy for a genius like Bach. And I do not use the term genius lightly. He was an Isaac Newton level genius in music, yeah. Okay, so why is he transposing that down a fifth instead of a fourth? We're looking at these notes here. Yeah, go ahead.
So we're in B flat,
Yeah.
and the subject starts on the dominant. almost.
Exactly.
So,
Yes, very good observation. That's a critical point. Okay, let's keep going.
so yeah, to like keep it in the tonic when the answer comes in, he's like bringing it down. Because otherwise, this subject, it would sound much more in F major than it does.
Exactly. Yep, that's exactly it. Yeah. If you, when the subject starts with the fifth scale degree, so we're in the key of B flat, right? The fifth scale degree of B flat is F. When your subject starts on the fifth, if you then transpose that, it jars you into the key of F like right away. And whereas if you start the subject on a B flat, it doesn't jar you into the key of F right away. So okay, we're in the key of B flat, right? The first scale degree of B flat is B flat. When you transpose that down a fourth, you get an F, right? And F is the first scale degree of the key of F, but it's also the dominant of B flat, right? The dominant, it turns out that the dominant is like, I don't know. Should I use a controversial political analogy here?
Yeah.
Sarah's like, yes. So the tonic, it's supposed to be, the piece is in B flat, the tonic is supposed to be like the president, right? This is supposed to be the leader of this is like the key that the piece is in. But really the dominant is the note or the chord that's in control. So it's like the dominant is like the deep state, right? And it's really the deep state that's running things. So that's why when you transpose, like if you're in if the fugue starts with the first scale degree, when you transpose that down a fourth, you get the first scale degree of the dominant, but it's also the dominant of the tonic, right? So you haven't really modulated. Does that make sense? But when you start with the fifth scale degree and you transpose that down a fourth, that down a fourth, then you get the dominant of the dominant, right? And it's the dominant of the dominant that will push you into the dominant. The tonic of the dominant is not going to push you into the dominant because you can just interpret that as the dominant of the tonic. Is that right? Did I say that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
It's like 3D chess.
It's
right?
like a 5 of 5.
It's like the 5 of 5, exactly. Yeah. So the F is the 5 of B flat. When you transpose it down a fourth, it's the 5 of F. So it's the 5 of 5. And it's the 5 of 5 that has the power to move you into the key of the dominant. Okay? Wow, this has turned out to be a really good explanation. Yeah.
So it is going to move into the key of the dominant
Yes.
very soon.
Yeah.
But we're just delaying it a little bit.
Exactly.
B flat. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And when you transposing the subject down a fourth or up a fifth will force you into the dominant, but you just don't want to do it right away. You want to like ease into it a little bit. You want to dip your toe in first and then take the plunge. You don't want to just dive right into the deep end. Yeah. So so in order to avoid that immediate move to the dominant, Bach will make a slight adjustment. He'll transpose the fifth scale degree will be transposed down a fifth instead of down a fourth. Yeah.
I just want to add to that. If you look further, like towards measure 9, you see that he starts that measure with kind of playing an F chord. So it kind of makes sense that subject, even though it's trying to outline the tonic,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
emphasizes the dominant.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Good point. Yes. So if you look even back a little bit farther, you see the E natural right there, which is the leading tone of F. So he's very clearly in the key of F here, and he still gives you an F, something that, yeah, I mean, there's, yeah. So it's still F at the beginning of measure 9, but that is then suddenly being reinterpreted as the dominant of B flat. Yeah, so you can very easily go from the key of F back to the key of B flat because F is the dominant of B flat. But it's a little bit harder to go from B flat to the key of F, again, because F is the dominant of B flat. You have to emphasize the dominant of the dominant in order to force it into the dominant from the tonic. But to go back to the tonic from the dominant is super easy. It's super easy if your subject starts with the fifth scale degree. Yeah. If the subject starts with the fifth scale degree, which now brings us back to Alan's comment from earlier. Alan, what did you say about 10 minutes ago?
Diatonic.
No, you said something about the fact that there's no bridge. Yeah. And in fact, there is no bridge in this one. You see that? You can see that clearly because the subject is exactly 4 bars, the answer is exactly 4 bars, and then right in measure 9 we get the subject again. So there's no bridge in this fugue. And subjects that start with the fifth scale degree usually don't need a bridge for this very reason, because you can interpret the fifth scale degree as the dominant of the key instead of as the first scale degree of the dominant. Yeah.
My question was answered.
Oh, good. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, do you want to share with us your
so
newfound
the-
knowledge?
The
Yeah.
question was, like, so when we're writing our fugue, are we supposed to include a bridge? But then I was like, only if you need to.
Yeah.
So if, like, you write the subject that has the fifth in it, and then you don't need the bridge.
Right, exactly. Yep.
So it depends.
It kind of depends. Yeah. Yeah, so it can be tricky. My advice, well, I don't know. You might think, I don't want to have to deal with trying to figure out how to transpose weirdly. So I'm just going to start my subject with the first scale degree. If you start with the first scale degree, then you can have, well, there's a term that I should introduce to you. Actually, do you want to try to come up with your own? Let's say that we are music theorists and we're writing a textbook which is going to establish music theory terminology for all time. Okay? And you're writing this textbook. And you see that some answers are perfect transpositions and some answers are slightly adjusted transpositions. And we want to come up with a term for those things. So what do you want to call the transposition that's accurate versus the transposition that isn't? What's a 2 words that we can apply to them? Do you understand what I'm asking?
I think so.
If we want to have an easy label that we can apply to those 2 different kinds of answers, what labels would we apply to them to make it clear, like what's going on, and just so we can have a simple, like 1-word description or label? Okay, perfect. A perfect answer. Okay, good. Versus an altered answer. Good. All right. Yeah, those would work. Any other ideas?
You said tonal answer.
Oh, I did. Yes. Dang it. I gave it away. Yeah. Okay. So the commonly accepted terminology that you can impress your friends with at your next dinner party is real answer versus tonal answer. So there's a real answer. The real answer is the one that is a perfect transposition. The tonal answer is the one that is slightly adjusted. Why is it called a tonal answer?
Because it's adjusted to make the tonality work better.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really
Yeah.
the key.
Yeah. You could also think of it as it adjusts it to keep it in the tonic. That's maybe another easy way to think of it. So you might think tonal answers are kind of confusing. I don't want to, although I've done an excellent job of explaining it. This is the best I've ever done at explaining what tonal answers are. The tonal answer might be a little bit confusing, so you're like, I'm going to avoid that, so I'm just going to make a subject that starts on the first scale degree. That way I can avoid using a tonal answer. And then you'll be right, yeah, then it's much easier. When you write the answer, you just have to do a straight transposition and then you're done. But when you get to the end of the answer, you're going to run into a problem, which is that you're going to need a bridge to get back to the tonic. And writing a bridge is also maybe a little bit tricky. So there's kind of a tricky bit either way, either at the beginning or the end. So you kind of